Hello, it has been about a week since the mid-season balance patch for Season 8, and so today, we'd like to take a look at some of its effects together. We'll take a look at how the balanced heroes are impacting the landscape of the meta, along with how other heroes have been indirectly affected. The assessment is based on the quantitative data at the top 500 level, but we firmly believe this will have further implications on the lower ranks as well. Let's first take a look at Mauga. Due to the overpowered nature of new heroes, he started the season at A tier and above, across all regions. But what goes up must come down, and he has received a pretty significant nerf this patch. The effects were immediate, as we see a downturn in Mauga's performance on our graph. I'm sure you can already feel in your games that Mauga doesn't feel as dominating as he was before. But we also don't know the extent of the effects of this nerf currently, as the graph could dive more, or could stop at its current position. We'll most likely get a better grasp of Mauga's trajectory when making our mid-season tier list in about a week. Orisa mains, if they still exist, have been significantly blessed with the removal of a fall-off damage penalty. On top, Orisa has even been given the potential to counter Mauga through her buff to her Fortify. Through the last few days since the update, she's seen about a 15-point increase in the Americas and the EU. While it seems like Orisa is on the rise regarding the meta, we'd like to argue that this may not actually be the case. This is because our beloved shield-wielding scientist, Sigma, has been left untouched. Regardless of the mid-season patch, he's still seeing a steady increase in performance. While Sigma's score is a few points below his performance from last season, his current viability is nothing to ignore. Because both Orisa and Sigma are poke and anchor tanks with high sustainability, we think that heroes that are unfavorable against Orisa are also unfavorable against Sigma. And if we were thinking in terms of synergy and space control, it would be a better choice to play the scientist over the horse. Roadhog has received a nerf to his breather ability, yet it doesn't seem to have created a significant impact. We can safely say that the effect of the nerf is pretty minor. The biggest reason for its minor effect is that its direct counter and its biotic grenade has also seen a nerf, balancing out the interaction. On top of that, as Mauga, a counter to Roadhog, sees a reduction in his performance with the recent nerfs, it's a bit difficult to say that Roadhog's viability has been impacted. Otherwise, there are two other tanks that are trying to defend their place in the meta in Season 8. First, we have Winston currently comfortably sitting and defending his S tier title in Asia. From the poke meta of Season 7 to the rework of Hog and Mauga, he continues to find steady value in the meta. While Winston has a difficult time when going against the reworked beefy boys, we can't deny the effects of Mauga's nerf, as well as Hog's difficulty against Ana. We can continue to see the Winston and Ana pair hold a firm position at the top of the meta. Furthermore, Winston can also comfortably counter Sigma and Zarya, both who are mainstream meta picks. We see the game of rock, paper, scissors in clear effect with Winston, as he safely sits in S tier. In addition to Winston, Ramattra is also turning into a rising star. First off, Ramattra is completely viable against Sigma, Winston and Zarya, all which sit on the S tier. While he can be seen as relatively inefficient against Mauga, he has a slight comparative advantage against all other tanks. Subsequently, he has successfully defended his position, and we even see an increase in his performance in the Americas and EU. In the DPS category, it's difficult to understand why Sojourn has been buffed. She was already a pretty strong pick before the patch, but the graph basically speaks for itself as her performance has increased even further. Currently, Sojourn is almost a necessity as a main DPS in team comps if going for the win. Moving on to Sombra, it's currently difficult to draw the effects of Sombra's buff to her stealth, as even at higher elos, it seems like she isn't making a significant impact. To be quite honest, we really don't understand the intention behind the balancing changes for the DPS heroes. If we had to force ourselves to make an argument for buffing Tracer and Sojourn, it almost seems like the devs are trying to force the two heroes as a staple DPS of Overwatch so that they can then use it to tweak the mess that is the balance of tank heroes. Obviously, take it with a grain of salt though. As for the other DPS, let's start off by looking at Hanzo, who's taking a straight nosedive in performance. We saw initial signs of deterioration up until the middle of Season 7, but that was only the start, as Hanzo continues to fall further into despair with no signs of stopping. This calls for a re-evaluation of Hanzo on our part, as we provide caution to lower ranked players who wish to play him. Also in the sniper category, Widowmaker is beginning to halt in performance for Season 8. We think this is mainly due to Sojourn and Tracer. Widows are pressured to switch whenever teamfights are lost due to the significant pure damage output of Sojourn, and whenever they're marked and flanked by Tracers. Whatever the reason, it seems like Widow just isn't that useful this season. On the other hand, Echo is one of the few DPS heroes seeing an increase in performance. Echo sees an advantage that she isn't contested by the current meta tank picks. Sigma, Winston, Zarya, Hog, and Ramattra are all difficult tanks to play against Echo. This makes Echo a very viable option. Finally, we move on to the support heroes. Ana has received a nerf to a biotic nade. While we see the potential of a performance decline in the European servers, her viability and even necessity still stand. stands. Whether it is 4 seconds or 3, it is well within the time frame to kill a tank, and she possesses the only non-ultimate ability in the game that completely blocks out healing. Due to being in a unique category, we believe she will continue to be effective in the meta. A well-awaited buff to Illari. Yet maybe it's because she has received a series of nerfs previously, the buff currently seems to have no effect on her performance. It really doesn't seem like we have to pay any special attention to Illari, as she hasn't produced significant dents in the meta compositions. It would be difficult to reclaim her glory from season 6 and 7, so we don't particularly see a reason to pick her this season. While Lifeweaver has received a pretty significant buff, unfortunately it doesn't seem to have changed the higher elo landscape. Since his previous buff in season 7, he hasn't gotten too much love from the community. He might need more changes for us to say he is worthwhile to play. Last but not least, we have Mercy, an anomaly out of the other heroes we have seen today. Every season, Mercy has seen high performance at the start of the season, but slowly fell off as the season progressed and top 500 elos got higher. But this time signs are showing it might be different. She's rivaling the rise of Zen, who saw a significant rise in season 8 in both the Americas and EU, while defending her position as an upper tier pick in Asia. Who would have guessed Mercy being so strongly viable, especially in Asia of all regions? If we try and analyze why, we think it's because the meta has shifted to a poke rush meta. If we look at S and A tier team comps that counter Mercy are only Doom Tracer, Winston Tracer, and maybe even Ball Tracer and Echo Tracer if we include lower tier comps. All compositions are difficult to see currently, and all other S and A tier comps aren't built to dive Mercy. Thus, the meta currently guarantees Mercy's survivability and subsequently makes it difficult to prevent or stop her reses. Furthermore, we see heroes that utilize Mercy's damage buff to create insta-kill combos in good standing within the meta. Sojourn's headshots, Sigma's accretion combo, and Hog's hook. 3 high viability heroes effectively utilize her damage buff to create insta-kills. This may be why she is sitting comfortably in her position. Despite the somewhat disappointing changes that came with the mid-season balance patch, we still have season 9 to look forward to in 3 weeks with its new and exciting changes. Support and tanks will both have passive healing, there will be global damage and heal burst reductions, as well as a new teammate UI. Due to the significant changes coming in season 9, we don't really think the current meta will last long, just a placeholder for the 3 weeks. I think the best we can offer is that you have fun. Who knows whether these patches will actually make a significant difference when season 9 comes along. We hope this video has been of help to you, and we always welcome feedback.